Hi everyone, Kessler Slimy here, the mortgage broker and property investor. We're live again on the Freedom Property Podcast. We're thrilled today to have Jamie Sharkey from Which Wallet. He's kindly agreed to join us on our investment podcast series. Me and Jamie worked together to help him grow his property portfolio over the years. But as well as investing in property, he also invests in crypto and has been doing for the last 5 years. Really intrigued to kind of know more about sort of Jamie's crypto career, as it were, and also about his business, Which Wallet, which is going to be extremely interesting topic today. It is interactive as well, so you can ask your questions in the chat box, and we'll make sure that Jamie answers them for you. Jamie, welcome onto the show.
Hi, Kezar. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I think maybe we'll start off with a disclaimer. Neither me or you, Jamie, are regulated financial advisors. So really, we're just going to be talking kind of about our own journeys here. If you don't construe this as financial advice, and if you do need advice in regards to investments, make sure you consult a professional. To kind of start off with, Jamie, for those that don't know you, can you maybe give us a bit of a background on yourself?
Aye, of course. My background is predominantly engineering. I started my career in mechanical engineering when I left school. Okay. I managed to get an apprenticeship with Rolls-Royce, and that was focusing on aero repair and overhaul, so aero engines. And I was there for about 5-6 years. And then I moved from that industry into the offshore oil and gas industry. Just to kind of total change of scenery, see the world, just progress my engineering career. Okay. So I was doing that. I eventually focused on subsea engineering, and that took me all over the world, Asia, South America, most countries in Africa, all over Europe. Done that for about 12, 13 years, and during that time, when we started to make some decent money and had a wee bit of disposable income, obviously thought it was a good idea to invest in some property, mostly. So that's what kind of kick-started the property journey as well. So I've probably been doing that for just over 10 years as well, like running alongside working offshore.
Yeah, okay, nice. Okay, that sounds interesting. And what kind of, obviously working in oil and gas, we see a lot of kind of the clients that maybe investing in property or, other assets, they eventually kind of want to move away from that. So what made you sort of pick sort of these investment assets, would it be property or crypto?
It was, I think, the kind of go-to naturally for everybody that's got a wee bit of interest in any type of investing. Yeah, it's pretty apparent that property is probably going to be one of the safest assets for you and provide some cash flow, as I'm sure most of your listeners will be involved in some way or another. So that was a bit of a no-brainer, and it actually became a wee bit addictive when you've got long periods in between jobs, 3-4 weeks at a time. I was just constantly scouring Rightmove and all these online platforms and looking for the next project to kind of build. So it's kind of like Monopoly, but in real life. Do you know what I mean? You want to just keep gathering more and more properties, and you get that wee sense of achievement. So that was a kind of natural interest that I had. But then when you're looking at investing anyway, and like I say, you've got a natural kind of interest in it, that leads you on to other shiny objects, so to speak. And there's been a fair few that didn't work out too well. I tried some stocks and shares over the years, and they haven't been the best. Some good ones, some bad ones. I've invested in like classic cars as well. Okay. But again, that was purely just for diversification and because I've got an interest in cars in general. And then naturally, that's going to lead you on to things like cryptocurrency. As that space began to grow, and you start to peel back the layers on that, then similar with property, you just find yourself going down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Yeah, nice. Well, okay, that leads us on nicely then to crypto then. So, for somebody that doesn't necessarily kind of know what it is, what is cryptocurrency or what is crypto?
Crypto, that is the $1 million question. It's difficult because it's such a wide space that covers so many different avenues. Like I kind of liken it sometimes to, because we're on a kind of property based podcast. If you think like, how would you compare like the trades that's in the construction industry? So you've got plumbers, joiners, plasterers, electricians. Like, you wouldn't say out of context a plumber's better than a Sparky. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And similarly with cryptocurrency, there's so many different cryptocurrencies. A lot of them actually aren't currencies, to be honest with you, but we'll just stick with that terminology just now. Okay. And they all do their own different things. So you can't compare this one to that, because you wouldn't compare a plumber to a Sparky, for example. So cryptocurrency is quite a big spectrum. But what I think the best way to focus on it, we'll stick with the main cryptocurrency and the one that kind of kicked off the whole industry, which is Bitcoin. I'm sure everybody's heard of Bitcoin. Yeah. I find it's a better grounding for people that aren't too sure about it to get an understanding. And we'll pick that one, and then that can lead on to some of the other ones that are out there. Similarly, the best way for me, in which we find at Which Wallet when we're speaking to our clients that we've helped in the past, if you can understand the problem that a technology is trying to solve, it's a lot easier to understand what the solution is.
Right.
So I think it's best if we start there. So what is the problem that crypto is trying to solve, or that Bitcoin is trying to solve? And the short answer is money. Money as we know it in the current financial system, and all the kind of institutions, and how money is used and how governments control money. That is the problem, effectively. So a wee history lesson. So if you go back and you look at all the different civilizations over the centuries, humans have always tried to conserve their wealth or their economic energy in some form. So some civilizations would use seashells that was maybe scarce on their island, for example. Yeah. Others would use a certain type of stone that was only found in that region. Some places in Africa would use glass beads or coloured glass. They would use that as tokens to trade and to store their wealth, and would be paid in it, things like that. Yeah. But as humans started to travel further afield and move further around the world and interact with different civilizations, this is another one of the problems. Just a wee side note: most collapses of civilizations and currencies can be traced to human behavior, and the fact that some humans do take the wrong road and they can succumb to greed, manipulation, corruption, all these type of things, these type of behaviors. So let's get back to when we're talking about humans traveling across the world. So when civilizations were interacting with each other, somebody would notice, well, wait a minute, shells on that island are quite rare, but I know there's an island over there there's loads of those shells. Those shells are everywhere. So it didn't take long to figure out. Greed kicks in. They would just load up the ship on a load of these shells that were readily available, go back to the first island and use them to get goods and services, etc., for basically nothing. And what that does to an economy, when they dump all these fresh shells into that economy on the first island, you think about it now, there's loads of those shells just scattered around everywhere. And if your net worth was stored in these shells, for talking's sake, or beads, whatever the token was at the time,
yeah,
your whole life savings are now worthless, because what you stored your wealth in is now plentiful. So that is one of the problems. So if you fast forward a few centuries, then humans discovered gold. So everybody knows gold is and has been used as a store of value for centuries. If you take the Roman Empire, for example, they used gold and printed a lot of gold coins throughout their whole empire. But again, the human behavior, negative traits kicked in, greed kicks in, hunger for power, things like that.
Yeah.
And the Roman Empire started to debase their own currency by reducing the amount of gold that was in their coins. And when they were melting down their gold reserves to print more coins, They would use a cheaper material like copper, for example. They would melt that down, and now they would have double the amount of coins. And when they sent that out into their economy with their soldiers, their mercenaries, and they tried to spend these new diluted coins, say, for example, years ago, 5 coins had a gram of gold in it each, so 5 grams of gold would buy you a horse. Now you're turning up with 5 coins, but there's only 2.5 grams of gold in total there. So it's going to cost you twice the amount of coins to buy the same horse, purely because your government or your issuing authority has debased the currency that you're using. And that just carried on, less gold, less gold, less gold, before there was no gold anymore in any of the coins. And then what is there? You're actually just trading useless materials. And that actually led to the collapse of the Roman Empire. They debased or inflated away their entire currency. So that's, throughout history, that has been the issue. I mean, we're no stranger to seeing this in modern times. I'm sure we've all seen things online where it's not a hot topic, but you've probably came across images of people going to the shops to buy like a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow full of cash. And that's hyperinflation. That's what's happening when governments or essential authority just print more money without any value behind it or any value backing that up. So that is the problem when you're talking about scarcity and storing value. If you store your wealth or your economic energy in an asset class, it's not even an asset class, but let's just say currency, cash in the bank, you're at real risk of your government who issues that currency just printing more money, which is devaluing your savings. So you need to be very careful on how you're storing your wealth. So just touching on, it's like a double-edged sword. So that's one issue with the scarcity and how money can just be created. It can just be printed out of thin air. The second point is the human behaviour that I touched on. And that's a great example of that is the 2008 financial crash. It comes down to a trust aspect. And if you're placing your trust in a group of human beings, like we've said, human beings in nature, they're wide open to manipulation and corruption and etc. We like to think majority of us aren't, which is true, but it's no unknown that people in positions of power can be corrupted. So 2008, that was the same thing. People were led by their own greed, selfishness, no thinking of the consequences of their actions. They were doctoring documents, inflating profits on the balance sheet, hiding debts, things like that. All that type of behaviour and flouting the rules and just ignoring rules that had been set in place and laws, etc. That's the second problem that comes with the current monetary system. So you've got 2 problems there: the trust issue and the supply issue that can be changed. So most of that makes sense, I'm assuming, so far.
No, definitely. No, you've explained that really well. And I suppose we're kind of seeing that just now, aren't we? I mean, when we're recording this is January 2022, quantitative easing's kind of going on now for many years, the amount of currency we're printing. So yeah, it's very interesting that you kind of brought that up.
Definitely. So, the main issue is, like I says, we've seen it over loads of civilizations, the Roman Empire, the Germans in World War II, they just printed so much of their own currency to fight the war effort. They actually just debased it into nothing. And it was actually when the currency effectively fell to zero and they had no more reserves to continue the fight. That's not the main reason, but that's one of the reasons why they just had to say, all right, game's up, enough's enough. So how does cryptocurrency, or how does Bitcoin in particular solve that problem? So like I says, there's 2 sides to that problem there. There's 2 separate. So the first one regarding the amount of currency or the amount of supply. The most important aspect of Bitcoin is that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin ever. It's been programmed into the software, written into the code. It stops at 21 million and that is it. So we know that there is no way, if Bitcoin's adopted as a reserve currency or even just a store of value, we know as humans that no one can ever come along and say, let's just print a wee bit more. Let's just, we need a bit more cash here to fight this war, or whatever the reason may be. We know that that's impossible. So you know what the fixed supply is going to be ever, which is anybody that's kind of got a handle on no even economics. I mean, you don't even need to know too much about economics, but if it's a fixed supply in something and then the demand is increasing as time goes, and the value of that asset is only going to go one direction. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the adoption of something like Bitcoin has been steadily increasing since its inception in January 2009. So that's the first problem that it solves. The second problem, how does it solve the trust issue in with regards to like the human behavior and trusting that what is in the Bitcoin ledger of the network? Like banks use ledgers all the time, corporations use ledgers, the profit loss accounts, things like that. How do we know that that's not going to be manipulated or corrupted to someone else's own gain?
Yeah.
So how the Bitcoin network solved that issue, there is a series of computers called nodes, and they're all interlinked, all interconnected. There's new nodes joining the Bitcoin network every day. There's hundreds of thousands of them all over the world. You could run a node if you want. Any one of your listeners can run a node and join the Bitcoin network. I run one myself. It's not too technical. And all that does is the node runs the Bitcoin software, which has a copy of the ledger. And that ledger contains every single transaction that has ever been made on the Bitcoin network since day one, back in 2009. So 13 years it's been running now. And it's cryptographically stamped, which means that it can't be tampered with. And the fact that every single node in the network is running a copy of this ledger, if a copy of the ledger has tried to be corrupted or someone has tried to hack it, for example, all of the nodes in the network, hundreds of thousands of them, all have to agree that this is a true copy of the Bitcoin software. So if one comes into the ecosystem, so to speak, and it's from like a hacker, for example, it'll just be rejected.
Right.
If you wanted to manipulate that ledger and say that I sent you 10 Bitcoins instead of half a Bitcoin, for example, for my own gain, you would need to corrupt every single node in that network. You're not relying on one person or one entity. Does that make sense? That's where the value lies.
Absolutely, no, it does. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, regards to that, so I mean, is that based on blockchain technology then?
It's effectively blockchain technology in the sense that every 10 minutes there is a new block added to the Bitcoin network. And
okay.
What that block means is that is like a refreshed version of the ledger.
Right.
And every transaction that's happened in the last 10 minutes, that's it now being updated. So every 10 minutes, there is a new block being added to that network. And it does effectively go like a chain. These blocks are just added on top of each other. Every 10 minutes for the last 13 years, Bitcoin has never missed a beat. It's never missed a block. It's added a new block every 10 minutes. And every time a new block is added to the network, Bitcoin is released into the Bitcoin network. That's where we get Bitcoin from, and it's miners. I mean, it's a wee bit technical as well. We might as well cover a wee bit of that. There's a separate group of computers. So you've got the nodes, and they run the ledger. They run the software that update the ledger. And then you've got a group of miners known as Bitcoin miners. These are specific computers that only mine Bitcoin. Again, hundreds of thousands of them all over the world. And they compete against each other to solve complicated mathematical problems. And every time that problem is solved, in kind of basic terms, a new block is released or added to the network. And at the same time, Bitcoin are released to the miner that was the most successful one that helped solve that problem. And the miners then sell them or keep them, but that's effectively how Bitcoin is entered into the Bitcoin network. So it's released every 10 minutes. But going back to the kind of scarcity solution, every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that is awarded to the miners when they solve these problems, is halved. So every 4 years, I think like every block just now, it releases 6.25 Bitcoin into the system every 10 minutes. So that's about 144 Bitcoin a day, whatever it works out at. Every 4 years, that will halve. So then it will go to 3.12 whatever Bitcoin every 10 minutes. 4 years after that, that 3.12 will halve again. So it's a decreasing asset rather than an asset like gold, for example. We're just finding gold mines, not all the time, but a gold mine could be discovered in Africa tomorrow, which is then going to increase the supply coming into the gold.
True.
It like eco space, so to speak. So that's the beauty of Bitcoin and how it's designed and how it is designed to be a scarce asset. You can't make any more. It's a finite asset. It's decreasing all the time. And as adoption grows and as the supply is dropping, the price is behaving accordingly, as we've seen for the last 13 years. It's on an upward trend.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of watch over that time, and obviously, like you said, since its kind of inception to now, obviously until it kind of gets to its maximum as well. So, I mean, in regards to that as well, then one reason why I've kind of seen a lot of people investing in the space is like what you said, where you've seen other civilizations get ruined through sort of printing of money or devaluing or debasing, sorry, as you said there, and it kind of seems like with Bitcoin and these other cryptos, they're decentralized. And what does that mean to kind of in layman's terms? And how does that affect kind of how we can kind of manipulate, or can we manipulate in any way?
The decentralization kind of aspect of it, there's a lot of projects coming out in the crypto space that are actually kind of replacing some aspects of banking as we know it. You and I had a discussion earlier about how you can use your crypto holdings and generate regular interest payments on it. I mean, there's one out there that I use that I think I'm currently getting 9.5% per annum, but it's paid out every month and it compounds as well. So it's an exponential growth. And I mean, 9.5%, that's unheard of in any terms of kind of financial industry for an interest rate.
Yeah.
But the good thing with that is, I know a lot of people might worry about, but if I put some of my wealth or my savings into a volatile asset like Bitcoin or Dogecoin or Ethereum, whatever one, take your pick, they can be volatile when it comes to their value. But that specific savings account that I was talking about, that money's kept in a stable coin, which is, the clue's in the name, it's stable. It's just like a digital version of the US dollar, for example. So this one's called USDT. The T stands for tether. So it's tethered to the dollar. So there is the same amount of that stable coin than there is dollars on the planet. So if you're quite confident in, for example, the US dollar as a currency or your own Great British Pound, if you put your savings into the stable coin form, it's just like a savings account. You can check it online, you can access it online, you can take it out whenever you want. It's not locked up, it's not locked away, and you get 9.5% on it. So that's just one example of the decentralization aspect.
Yeah.
There's other platforms out there that they will offer you a loan or like cash money against your Bitcoin holdings. So if you need to get a hold of some cash for, say you've got a project coming up and your money's tied up in Bitcoin, for example. I keep going back to Bitcoin, but it is the kind of, for the ease of, rather than confuse people and jump around, we'll just stick with that analogy at the moment. So you could offer up your Bitcoin and take a loan out against it. And I think the best one I've seen this week, they do change sometimes, but the interest rate, it was under 8%. But if you're only going to use it for a few months, then as soon as you pay it back, they calculate how much interest it is over that 3 months. And then when you pay it back, then you get your Bitcoin back. And the good thing with that is you avoid capital gains tax then. So the other option would be, all right, I'll just sell some Bitcoin for this project or whatever the reason is. But then you would be looking at paying capital gains. So if you use your Bitcoin as collateral for a loan, you avoid the capital gains. So there's all sorts of different platforms out there and different ways that you can actually use your crypto holdings in real time, in real life, to benefit. It's not just theory anymore. It's not just if there's adoption, or like we're at the stage now where it has been adopted, and there are serious platforms out there that offer all these different types of services that are competing really strongly against your traditional means of finance.
Well, in regards to that, then, it doesn't always kind of come to investing in sort of currencies, does it? Blockchain can be used for lots of different things, right?
Exactly. Well, that kind of goes back to all the different types of cryptocurrencies out there. They all do their own different thing. So, I mean, Bitcoin is generally a store of value. But I'm trying to think, say, for example, anything that relies on trust or like a third-party verification. And like we've discussed before, if you leave humans involved in that process, it can fail at any time. Mm-hmm. So let's say like elections, whether it's a government election, a country election, if it's a union in the workplace or universities, people use elections in democracies all the time in all different shapes and forms. But how many times have you heard, oh, we're going to have a recount, or they're not too confident in that ballot? If you use blockchain technology and people use that to cast their vote, then the outcome is going to be solid, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Because the blockchain, the way it's structured, there's no way that you'd be able to interfere with it. There's no way you would be able to manipulate the outcome of that vote. So I mean, that has massive implications for not only industry but just mankind worldwide. That's the kind of level that cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is changing the world. A lot of people think, oh, that's crypto, that's that funny internet money. It's really, if you just scratch the surface and you dig a wee bit deeper, it really is really interesting topic.
No, definitely. I mean, I was definitely one of those as well. Definitely a naysayer, but kind of looking into it recently, it's really kind of opened my eyes. And even when it comes to property purchases, it could potentially kind of change that, couldn't it? Because it's such a long-winded, old-fashioned kind of way of doing things just now. It could really speed it up and cut out so many sort of middlemen along the way as well.
Exactly. I mean, if you think the whole conveyancing process and just the kind of
even the mortgage process, although I'm a mortgage broker,
the mortgage process as well. I mean, you know yourself, and like I use the same solicitor all the time, and she really is great. But all the solicitors out there, their hands are tied to the system that we use, and it really, in 2022, there is no need for it to take 6 weeks to buy a 40 grand flat in Maryhill. I mean, there is no need for it, and the amount of moving parts that's involved, and solicitors involved, and the lender have got their own solicitor and you've got yours and the sellers get theirs. There's no need for that. And in the future, I mean, again, these are all opinions to a certain extent, but it's an educated opinion. Blockchain technology is going to do away with that whole process. A lot of these kind of title deeds and the system that's in place just now, if that's loaded onto a blockchain and you know for sure that hasn't been tampered with, or even like insurance companies with policies and legal firms with contracts in place, if it's on a blockchain, you know that it is solid. You know what I mean? It is a wee bit more in depth than that, but the potential really is there to shake up these industries that have been just accepted. Well, that's just the way that we buy property, or that's just how insurance companies run. It is really going to shake up these industries. Hello. You still there, kids?
Hi, Jamie, there?
I'm back. Was that me or you?
No, it was definitely me. Apologies, the internet went off in the whole office there, so
No, that's all right.
there's another company as well, and theirs all went down. So apologies on that.
No, that's okay. That's all right.
Apologies. Maybe it's the powers to be didn't like us talking about cryptocurrencies.
Maybe that'll be the conspiracy theories. Drums will be beating.
Absolutely. Right, guys. Sorry, we're back now. I don't know how far you got to, Jamie, on that last question there. I don't know if you can finish it off, or did you manage to finish it off?
I think to a certain extent. I'm trying to think how far we got.
We're just talking about the conveyancing process for buying properties.
Yeah, it was just another example of how cryptocurrency and blockchain technology can shake up those kind of industries, elections, the insurance companies, and the property market. Even for example, like gold is one of the kind of most commonly comparisons to the likes of Bitcoin. Okay. That's what I'm just going to touch on that a wee bit. If you think of if you keep the majority of your wealth in something like gold, like physical gold, which a lot of people are doing now, is like a hedge against inflation, but they're not quite sure about crypto and Bitcoin, for example. If you compare it, if you've got, I don't know, let's say $100,000 worth of gold, and it's in gold bars, how are you going to move that across the country, or even to another country, or over borders, without having to pay massive fees, security, having to declare it, never mind the kind of physical aspect of physically carrying that with you?
Yeah.
Now, if you compare that, it's in countries like where we live, we're quite privileged in the Western world, where we maybe can't imagine a time where we would have to up sticks and take our net worth and move somewhere. But that doesn't mean that it's not happening for other people all over the world. Bitcoin doesn't need to solve your problem specifically for it to be valuable. It can still be valuable because it solves a massive problem that maybe you're not experiencing. So using the gold comparison, can you imagine that you are being persecuted in a country somewhere, and we're seeing like some nasty things happening worldwide, without getting too political, the Taliban going back into Afghanistan, people having to flee, and then there's rushes on the border with Ukraine, things like that. These things are happening now. Can you imagine you had to get up and leave? If your wealth was stored in Bitcoin, for example, you can cross any border that you want with that. Say it's £1 million. It's in your head. All you need to know is your let's call it a password for your Bitcoin wallet, but that's not the technical term. But as long as you know that, you can travel anywhere with that £1 million in your head, and no one can confiscate it from you or hold you ransom for it. Do you know what I mean? Nobody even needs to know that you have it. So that's just another example of how blockchain technology and the products and the assets that are based on that, because it is in cyberspace, it really is changing the world and how humans are using their wealth and things. And again, like we said, with the property industry and insurance companies and elections, it's really changing all of these areas.
No, absolutely. It's definitely going to be interesting to kind of see how this follows through in the next upcoming years. So let's kind of take it back to sort of 2017, Jamie. Obviously you was investing in property heavily, and at that time you started investing in crypto. What attracted you to crypto at the time, and how did you get started?
That's a good question. Like I said earlier, my main focus was property. I loved it. That was a hobby as well as a kind of like a financial gain as well. But to answer the first part of the question, there was an old friend of mine who had started getting involved in crypto, and he kept talking about it. And I had heard about it in about 2014, 2015, and I just dismissed it. I thought, that's not for me. I'm not into computers. That's funny internet money. People are making massive amount already. I've already missed the boat. And when I think back, it's like, see if only I had dug a wee bit deeper and maybe read a wee bit more on it, who knows what could have happened in terms of price gain and things like that. So 2017, same again. I thought, all right, this guy will not stop going on about it. So I did start to look a wee bit more, and then that's when it started to kind of turn in my mind for me. At that stage as well, there wasn't as many platforms or real life use cases back then in 2017, which wasn't that long ago, but there wasn't the kind of available services to use your crypto to your advantage that there are now. And that's just how fast, that's an indication of how fast the space is growing. So that being said, I thought, all right, it's worth a punt. And that's what I thought it was. So I bought a few different coins, but started reading up more and more on it. And at the same time, as the years went by, 2018, 2019, I was getting really frustrated with the property market, to be honest with you. And like just some of the reasons that we were talking about, it's taking 4 to 6 weeks just to buy a flat. And when I really started thinking about it, I thought, right, I'll give you an example, right? So let's say I've got 20, 30 grand, and I'm thinking, right, I want to get this money, put it to work for me. So I think, right, I'm going to invest in property. So I find a property, and you're looking for your deposit. So let's just say your deposit's 15 grand, and then you've got your legal fees on top of that. You've also got your ADS and your stamp duty, depending on the price of the property, of course.
Yeah.
You've also got, once you finally get the keys, well, go back a wee bit, not taking anything away for you, Keza. As you know, we've worked with a few properties over the years, and but you've got your mortgage broker fees, then your mortgage provider is taking an arrangement fee.
Yeah.
Sometimes the mortgage lender doesn't like the surveyor who done the home report, so you need to pay for another survey to be done.
True.
I mean, the fees are stacking up here, and I haven't even got the keys yet. So let's say you get it over the line and it's needing a wee bit of work done. Even just a cleaner to come in, a couple £100, right? Doesn't even need that. That's not even a refurb. Then you've got 10-12% on a letting agent for a good one these days every month. You've got your landlord registration fees. You've got your smoke alarms and all that kind of certification. You've got your electrical checks. You've got your gas safety certs. You've got your Legionella certs. I mean, these are all ongoing expenses.
Yeah.
And we haven't even got a tenant yet. Do you know what I mean? So, and then once you get a tenant in, you might have some vacant periods where you're not generating any cash flow any month at all. You've still got your mortgage to repay. You could have a bad tenant that causes a lot of damage and that wipes out your whole year's profit. So when you look at that, and that's not unheard of. That's all factual costs involved in buying say like a 70 grand flat somewhere. It's no life changing money. So what you're going to earn, maybe 5-6% return on that investment, all said and done. Or you could take your money and put it in a stable coin that's just it's not going to fluctuate in price. If you don't have the stomach for Bitcoin or anything else, you stick your money in a stable coin and you get 9.5% compounding every month on it. Do you know what I mean? So as the kind of space grew, crypto, and I was probably getting a wee bit frustrated with the property market and the way everybody taking a chunk and a fee left, right, and centre.
Yeah,
I'm obviously going to start leaning towards the crypto side. So that's what led me to kind of start offloading some of my properties and diversifying more and more into the crypto space.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like you said, obviously that you obviously really believe in it because you have offloaded some of your properties to invest in crypto, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And then kind of it will probably sound quite interesting to some of the listeners just now, but also a minefield. So like, where would somebody start if they wanted to kind of invest, in cryptocurrencies?
It is. I mean, it goes without saying. It really is a minefield. There is, I think, the last count was there was over 17,000 different types of cryptocurrencies. Like I say, most of them aren't currencies, but let's just call them that. There's about 17,000 on the market, and they all do different things.
Yeah.
Majority of them, they're not really going to go anywhere. They probably won't be here in a year's time. But the space is getting better and it is getting more reputable. But there is still there's a lot of people out there that are just looking for engagement on like their social media pages. I mean, if you're going to go to wee Stevie, 17-year-old, maybe 10,000 YouTube followers, and he's talking about Lambos and this is the next big thing and all that, I'd be very wary of the advice I'd be taking for him. And he's only been investing for 6 months. So just be aware of who you're taking your advice from and try not fall for the clickbait ads. Oh, Bitcoin's crashed. If I had a Bitcoin every time I heard Bitcoin crashed, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I'd probably be away somewhere else on a yacht. Do you know what I mean? It's like a lot of it is just clickbait. It's just trying to generate engagement and content and things like that. So first thing is be wary of where you're getting your information and try and find somebody. Like obviously I run a business called Which Wallet, but we've been in the space since 2017. We've been through 2 full market cycles, and we have probably made every mistake that someone just entering the space now would probably make. So reach out to people like ourselves or any other kind of reputable crypto kind of specialists, so to speak, that are out there. But just try and get as much education as you can. Just try and do as much research as you can.
Yeah. Okay, that's great advice there, Jamie. So you touched on obviously your business, Which Wallet, as well. So what did you guys do, and what was the purpose for setting up that business?
We set the business up in 2020. So, I mean, we had been unofficially helping people and advising just connections that we knew who were interested in crypto, and they knew, Jamie's been buying a wee bit over the last couple of years. So it was more a kind of casual kind of thing. But as the interest in the space grew and more people were coming and asking for help, then especially with lockdown, a lot of time at home, and we thought, do you know what, let's try and get it into like a format and a more kind of structured content that people can go to and just say, right, I'm interested, what's it all about? It's really like an on-ramp service to get people started. So what we focus on, we're launching Which Wallet workshops next month. So as you can imagine, it's a workshop event. You would come along and we start at the basics, what crypto is, what blockchain is, what's Bitcoin, all these type of things. But it's more focused on real use examples and like case studies and showing you how you can use crypto in your day-to-day life. So like we would explain all the different type of exchanges out there, how you set up an account in exchange. You would link your bank account to it, and then you would use that to buy your crypto. But a lot of different exchanges do a lot of different things. So one might not be right for you and another would be right for someone else. We also talk about wallets, the pros and cons of keeping your crypto on an exchange or taking control of it in your own wallet. And at the end of the workshops, you actually, when you leave, you'll have your own wallet set up and you know exactly how to use it, how to send money in, send money out, and everything else in between. We also talk about some of these platforms that we use to generate some decent interest. We go into all the detail, who they are, how to set up with them, the ones about generating money against using your Bitcoin as collateral, for example. Everything like a real kind of real-time event that you're going to get practical information out of. So that's we also touch a wee bit on the kind of the HMRC and the tax implications and what HMRC's current stance is on crypto investing and So it's all useful information that when you come away, you'll have a clearer picture of, right, that's for me, or I'm not too interested in that, and all right, well, I know how to do this and that. So that was the goal behind it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. And we'll get you, Jimmy, to kind of give your information at the end, where we can kind of find more information about these workshops. That'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned a few things there, like an exchange as well. So what is an exchange?
Aye, so the best way to get started to buy crypto would be to go to a crypto exchange. So it's effectively a website platform where you would register an account with them, and then you would link your bank account or your debit card to your account on the online exchange.
Okay.
And listed on the exchange is just every crypto that they offer. So whatever crypto you're interested in, you would make sure that the exchange offers that specific crypto. And it just gives you real-time current prices and the volume and how much has been bought and sold that day. And like, if you use a good one, then it is real-time information, and you just click buy the amount that you want, and it transfers into your wallet on the exchange. That's the kind of simplest explanation, but you do need to be really careful. I mean, Kez, you'll remember last week, I think it was, you and I run through a mock example of buying Bitcoin on one of these exchanges.
Yeah.
And I think, what was it? It was under £400 for the fee. The fee for that specific Bitcoin purchase, I think, was 382 quid or something. And we then showed you how to use the same platform, but the exact same Bitcoin purchase, the fee was a £5. So I mean, that's a saving of over £370 just based on that small information alone. And I think you actually got more Bitcoin for the purchase than you would have in example one. So there's a lot of kind of moving factors when it comes to the exchanges. So again, focus on your education, do a lot of research, and you can save hundreds of pounds. I mean, if you're going to do a few transactions a year, I mean, that's a hell of a lot of money.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want it to kind of be gobbled up in fees. No. And Paul's asked a question that kind of probably, you mentioned kind of wallets then, obviously your business is called Which Wallet too. Paul's asking kind of what's the risk of your money if your platform defaults or goes into liquidation? What compensation do you get? And potentially that probably leads on to, why you should maybe have a wallet, I take it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. There has been an example. One of the most famous ones was an exchange called Mt. Gox a few years back, and that basically disappeared and took a shed load of Bitcoin with it, and some other crypto assets, and they still haven't returned the assets to their customers. So that there are pros and cons against keeping your assets on the exchange versus your own wallet. So if you're going to be trading a lot and you're going to be buying and selling and dipping in and out, but that's a whole other episode if you want to talk about trading. Then it does make sense to keep a certain amount of assets on the exchange purely for ease and speed. I mean, the assets are there ready to trade if there's a rapid price movement or whatever. But if you're in Bitcoin for the long term, which is what I do, I don't trade. I traded for 2 years, but I don't do it at all anymore. I'm focused more on the long term. I like to know that I'm in control of my assets. I know exactly where they are at all times. I know what the value is. And if, heaven forbid, I had to get up and leave, I know that I'm taking my assets with me because I hold the private keys or the password to my wallet in my head. So it really does go hand in hand with the whole reason behind cryptocurrencies. I mean, it was created to take the power and the control out of one central entity and giving people control of their own assets and their own investments. Do you know what I mean? So if you then just leave it on an exchange and then the exchange defaults and disappears with your assets, then what's been the point?
Yeah. No, exactly. No, that's very true. Yeah. And I think kind of what we've seen recently now is that, big investors are starting to invest into crypto as well. Banks are, pension funds and stuff like that. How have you seen sort of crypto grow, over sort of the last 5 years that you've been investing?
Yeah, there's been just a few examples there that you mentioned, Kezar. It's really picking up with a mass adoption, and that's not just with individuals. It is big corporations now are starting to look closely at crypto and Bitcoin and Ethereum as a serious hedge against inflation. I mean, going back to what we discussed before, inflation is one of the biggest dangers to the survival of a lot of individuals and these massive companies. I mean, if you look at these massive corporations worldwide, and a lot of them are sitting on a lot of cash reserves. I say they're sitting on 100 million in cash in the bank, as well as some of their other assets. And you've got inflation figures coming in. Well, we can talk about that in a wee bit more detail. I mean, for example, the UK, the latest inflation figures was 5.4% for the last 12 months. I don't believe that at all. I mean, even if that is true and you're sitting on 100 million pounds, let's say for talking's sake, as a massive corporation, you've just lost £5 million just by doing nothing, by nothing of your own fault. So, and if inflation is going to keep rising at the rate that we're seeing, that's going to be 10 million next year. It's going to be 15 million the year after that. So it's not going to take long before your cash reserves are wiped out purely by inflation, especially if you're only getting 0.5% on that in the bank.
Yeah.
So it's akin to a melting pot of money, like a melting ice cube of money that these companies and corporations are sitting on, and inflation is the heat that's causing the ice to melt, so to speak. So they are seriously looking at things like Bitcoin because, like we've explained at the start of the podcast, it's the best hedge against inflation that mankind has ever seen. I mean, the money expansion in the UK last year was 14%. That's just the amount of money that's been created out of thin air to prop up this economy. The ECB, I think it was closer to 30%. And the US dollar, the Federal Reserve, their official figures are 40% money expansion in the last year. I mean, with figures like that, it's not going to take long before these currencies are heading to zero purchasing power, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't mean it to take a doom and gloom turn, but if you're sitting in cash and we're getting these kind of figures coming out, cash is the worst thing that you want to be sitting in right now.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think kind of say inflation's like the silent killer, isn't it? It's something you don't kind of realize. It doesn't kind of hit you all of a sudden, but over time it erodes your wealth away, doesn't it?
Exactly. I mean, these figures at 5.4% for the UK. All right, that's bad enough. I mean, that's the worst rate of inflation that we've seen in the UK for 30 years. But how they come to these figures is they choose a basket of products and services that your average consumer uses, and then they work out the price difference over the last 12 months, take an average, and they say, all right, it's up 5.4%.
Yeah.
But anybody that's paying the slightest bit of attention will tell you that the figure's much higher than that. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the essentials that mankind needs is shelter, food, heat, and energy. I mean, let's just stick with them. So shelter, housing, the price of housing is up massively in the last 12 months. It's nowhere near 5%. So if you put that in the basket, right, because everybody needs housing. If you look at the cost of materials to build new housing, or even just to modify or kind of maintain the houses that we're already living in, right, which is essential, the cost of timber's through the roof. It's like more than doubled. So that's over 100%. So you put that in the basket, and then you look at fuel at the pump. That's more than 5%. The cost of electricity, gas, guaranteed that's more than 5%. Your food, your shopping, obviously, all right, it depends on which individual products, but I would be pretty happy to bet that that's more than 5% as well. So if you put the essentials into the basket that you and I need to buy, we need to spend our money on that to survive. Inflation's not 5%. It's closer to 14, 15. it wouldn't surprise me if it matched the rate of the money expansion, put it that way, which is 14% in the UK, 30 in Europe, and 40 in the US.
Yeah, I could well believe that. Absolutely. I mean, it's hit all our pockets, hasn't it? Absolutely. Especially this last year. Yeah, inflation's been insane. Yeah, you're
definitely.
Right. So, I mean, I'm going to heckle you for a second, Jamie. As crypto investors, I'm sure you kind of heard this all the time. A lot of people say, crypto investors, that's for drug dealers, cartels and stuff like that. And, how do you respond to kind of these comments? Because that's what we see all over the news as well.
You see it a lot. I mean, the first thing is, I mean, that's one example of it. That's used by shady characters and people trying to hide their ill-gotten gains and things like that. The first thing is, what have shady characters been using to transact for centuries? Before crypto, before Bitcoin, they used money, they used cash, they used fiat currency. So are we just going to get rid of fiat currency because some unsavory characters use it? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make it worthless. It doesn't outweigh the benefits that it brings.
True. I get what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean? And it is quite a kind of, is there any proof of that anyway? I saw something online the other day. Okay, some criminals did use Bitcoin, for example, in the past, but apparently for ill-gotten kind of activities, it's actually been decreasing year on year. But similarly, again, it's like, how many drug dealers use mobile phones? Does that mean that we shouldn't use mobile phones then, and we shouldn't adopt that technology just because some criminal can see the benefit in it as well?
Yeah.
What kind of world is that? Do you know what I mean? So the first thing is, it's not being used as much as they would have you believe. And even if it is, you show me any kind of advancement in technology or like a good product that we all use that criminals haven't latched onto. It's just, it goes back to the human nature thing. It's always going to be there in some way or other.
Yeah, no, it's a great analogy, that, Jamie. And as we're recording this, is probably kind of more sort of date sensitive just now. It's January 2022. We're seeing some of the markets dipping just now, and obviously we're not here to kind of give advice, but as an investor, what do you kind of look at when the market's kind of going through these changes? And obviously you said you've kind of been through a few cycles already. What's your thoughts on that?
That's, again, great question. For me personally, because I'm invested in the long term, these market corrections don't really bother me. It doesn't worry me. We've seen it before. We've seen, I think, the first cycle I went through was 2017 going into 2018. And as the market cap of crypto and Bitcoin, but crypto in general, was rising, we saw at least 6, if I remember correctly, massive 30 to 40% drawdowns on the way up.
Okay.
So, I mean, you expect the market to behave like that. It does correct itself, and this is what we've seen. All right, so, I mean, it's easy for people to kind of make fun of it and say, look at your Bitcoin now. I think it was, let's just use pounds. A lot of the time it's in dollars, but let's just use pounds. It was just over 50 grand, and now it's sitting at, I think it's sitting at 27 something today. So, all right, that is a massive drop, but it's easy to pick that snapshot in time to suit your narrative or to prove the point that you're looking to prove. It's like confirmation bias. So I could say the same. I could say, well, all right, look at the last 6 days. Bitcoin's up 9%, 10% in the last less than a week. That's amazing. I mean, I know professional investors, not involved in the crypto space, and they aim to make between 6 and 7% a year on their portfolio. If you told them you'd make 9% in 6 days, that's unheard of. You know what I mean? So if you want to take a snapshot in time and analyze it and then use that one thing to prove a point, for me, the best thing to do is, the only way that you're going to get a true reflection of the situation is if you zoom out and look at Bitcoin's price performance in its entirety over the last 13 years. And it's undeniable that it's on a upward trajectory. So, of course, it's going to do this along the way. It's not a straight line. Nothing in life is a straight line. It's going to do this along the way. But it's important to remember that for all the negative headlines that have come out and China banning it and all this and energy crisis and only criminals use it, do you think Bitcoin cares? Bitcoin as a network is oblivious to all this. It's just noise. And it's still here. And every 10 minutes, there's a new block added. Every 10 minutes for the last 13 years. It's never been hacked. It's never been corrupted. It's on an upward trajectory with regards to price and adoption. For me, it's a no-brainer. Do you know what I mean? The newspapers can release as many headlines as they want, but it's not going to stop it.
Yeah, that's great. Right, that's fantastic, Jamie. Really enjoyed that today. You know, I think the way you kind of explained that for us was really good. So about Which Wallet then as well, you know, to touch on that, how can people connect with you going forward?
The best way, if you go on our Which Wallet Facebook page, you can have a look at some of the posts on there and just send us a direct message via that, or you can contact me direct as well. Facebook's probably the easiest for everybody, Jamie Sharkey. Just have a search, add the page as well. Have a look around. We've recently changed our marketing team. So our website is going to be updated. We're almost finished tweaking it. So we are going to update the website. By all means, have a look, but we want to go in a wee bit a different direction with the marketing stuff. So that's under kind of construction at the moment. So the easiest way would be contact me direct or on the Which Wallet Facebook page.
Excellent, Jamie. Right. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for going through that with us. I'm sure all the listeners have got great value from that, and definitely do connect with Jamie and Which Wallet. Jamie, hopefully we can maybe get you on again in the future, talk a wee bit more in depth. You know, obviously this one was just more high level. We can maybe kind of get into more nitty-gritty next time. But I really want to thank you for coming on today, Jamie.
Brilliant, Kezar. No problem at all. Really enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Okay, everybody. Take care.
Cheers.